أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق نحن نرزقكم وإياهم صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Due to the overpopulation in certain countries, there was a booming in birth rates, specifically in countries like China and India. There was a concept introduced, even though it's an old concept, but it became extremely relative when the overpopulation began. This concept was birth control. We see countries like India, China, even some Western countries that began to introduce the concept of birth control and to encourage it using contraceptives. In fact, in some countries, if you had more than one child, you would be fined. You were only limited to one child per family. You wish to have more, that's fine, but you will be fined. In fact, in the past couple of years, we saw that there are some Islamic countries that encouraged birth control and encouraged the use of contraceptives. Now, these same countries, specifically the Islamic countries, that promoted birth control, that encouraged the use of contraceptives, now have taken a different policy and now are encouraging procreation. Why did they encourage birth control in the first place? And why are they now encouraging procreation? We shall study this tonight. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, as I join you for the next 8 nights during these blessed hours and nights of the month of Ramadan, and especially as we commemorate the martyrdom of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Tonight, which is our first night, we'd like to examine this topic: birth control in Islam. Its pros, its cons, its effects on society, the positions and stances of world religions towards birth control, the position of Islam towards birth control, and our opinion on this topic. وصلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. According to historians, صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. According to historians, that the first person that promoted and encouraged birth control was Aristotle. In about 384 BC, he was the first person to encourage birth control using natural chemicals. Pliny, another Greek scholar, was also known to have encouraged birth control from 23 to 79 AD. I'm sorry, Roman scholar, not Greek scholar. He was known to have encouraged abstinence as the best form of birth control. Casanova, in his memoirs, discussed his experiments and his experiences with birth control. Throughout the 19th century, the world noticed several attempts at enhancing the process of birth control and introducing better ways and more effective ways at birth control. Up till 1873, the United States of America was the only Western country that criminalized birth control. It was legal in all parts of Europe except in the United States of America. It was considered a crime. In 1914, a lady by the name of Margaret Sanger coined the term birth control. It was the first time that this term was used was in 1914, and she promoted it in her journal called The Woman Rebel. In 1916, Sanger opened the first birth control clinic for women in Brooklyn, New York, where women could receive information on birth control or contraceptives were also provided in this clinic. However, 10 days later, the government shut down this office. This was in 1916. In 1920, the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution gave women the right to vote. This is in 1920, approximately 100 years ago. In 1923, Margaret Sanger opened the first legal birth control clinic. The government gave her the authority to open that clinic. In 1930, the Anglican Church favored limited acceptance of birth control. They allowed it, however, with limited acceptance. As for the Roman Catholic Church, in 1930, when they saw that the Anglican Protestant Church allowed birth control, the Roman Catholic Church took a stand and banned birth control. Up till today, as I speak to you, the Roman Catholic Church bans birth control. In 1959, there was the discovery of the contraceptive pill, also known as the pill. 1 year later, in 1960, it was approved by the FDA in the United States of America. That meant that people could use it, and there was absolutely no ban. This was in 1960. By 1962, 1.2 million American women were already on the pill. By 1963, 2.3 million women were on the pill. By 1965, 6.5 million women were on the pill. By 1967, 12.5 million. By 1970, 2/3 of Catholic women were using the pill. The religion bans it, yet 2/3 of them were already using the pill. By the early 1980s, 80% of Catholic women were on the pill. In 1984, 50 to 80 women worldwide are using the pill. As for birth control around the world, in China, in 1979, they introduced the law that each family is limited to one child. And if a family has more than one child, they will be fined. There was the culture of birth control, the culture of using contraceptives. And since 1979, according to statistics, wallahu a'lam, 400 million births were prevented in China from 1979. In the United States of America, 98% of reproductive aged women have used some form of contraceptives. Here in the United Kingdom, 74% of reproductive age women have used some form of contraceptives. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, in Western history, it's known that the pill the contraceptive pill and birth control that was discovered in 1959 and approved in 1960 led to something extremely huge. What was it? The social revolution. Women were empowered. Women were joining the workforce. Women were now being equal to men in power and status. They were receiving the same jobs. They were being paid almost the same salaries. But what does that have to do with it? The pill was discovered. But what does that have to do with the social revolution? What does that have to do with women being empowered? You see, when the pill was introduced, now it was women that get to decide when they get pregnant. Before, it was up to the man. When the man wants a pregnancy, it's up to him. He gets to decide. It was not in the hands of the woman. Now that the pill was introduced, the woman gets to decide when she chooses to be pregnant. This had a tremendous effect on her life. This means that she did not need to get married at an early age. This used to happen before, and it still happens today. How many times do you hear of an American or an English person, a couple getting married at 18 or at 19? We hear it all the time. In high school, in college. You hear of young kids at the age of 18 or 19 getting married. Do you think it's out of love? Because they met each other and they fell in love and then they decided to get hitched and to get married? No. A lot of times it's because they made a mistake. The young lady got pregnant at the age of 18, and in order not to have an illegitimate child, in order for her not to get in trouble with her parents or in the community, or to save her family an embarrassment, they decide on getting married at the age of 18 or 19. How often do we hear this? We hear about this very often today, even after the discovery of the pill. Imagine the effect that it had at that time. Women now were in control. They get to decide. That means, and unfortunately, the social revolution, it meant that at the time when the pill was discovered, that women chose to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and with whoever they want. Why? Because now they were in control. No one can ruin their life and get them pregnant and destroy their future. No one can ruin their reputation any longer. No one could harm them because they were in control of their own pregnancy. You see, and this was called a social revolution. To me, it seems like more of a satanic revolution, not a social revolution. According to historians, that because of this social revolution, now women remained single longer. There was no rush to get married. Why? Because there was no fear of pregnancy. So if there's no fear of pregnancy, you could wait longer. There's no need to get married quickly. You could wait till the later years of your 20s or beginning of your 30s, or maybe even till the later years of your 30s. And they began joining the workforce. Why? Because they were not pregnant. They didn't need to get married. They did not need to become housewives. They didn't need to have little children. Now they were empowered. Now they were in control. They can join the workforce. They can get a good education. They can pick up any job that they want. Not necessarily a nurse or a teacher or a simple housewife. Now they can become doctors and engineers, entrepreneurs, great businessmen. They joined the workforce. And this was seen as a new history, a positive history for women, called the social revolution. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we analyze these events, when we examine this event, and we take a close look, when we're not affected by the big slogans of what the West tells us, we see that this was anything but a revolution. This was not a revolution. In fact, this social revolution did not come to empower women. It did not come in favor of women. It did not give them any sort of advantage of power. In reality, it gave power and advantage to whom? To whom? To men, not to women. Now, men could do whatever they want. With whoever they want, whenever they want. No fear of pregnancy serves whom? Women or men? It serves their interests. Now they get to do whatever they want, with whoever they want, whenever they want. There's no fear of becoming a father of an illegitimate child. There's no more responsibilities. There's no more financial responsibilities. There's no fear of having to propose to a woman that he doesn't even know, but he just wanted to satisfy certain desires with. It came to their advantage. It didn't come to the advantage of women. You see how it is? You see how they flip the situation? They introduce something and they make it seem that it's for the benefit of women. This is how it is in the West, unfortunately. Poor women. In the West, everything that's given to them, it's given to them in the name of, this is good for you, this is more power for you, more freedom for you. While when you look at certain things in the West, the promotion of non-hijab, take your clothes off, you don't need to wear a hijab, you don't need to wear a scarf. Does this serve men or does this serve women or does this serve men? Everything that is promoted, not everything, but almost everything that is promoted in the name of women's rights or feminist rights in the West, it's completely the opposite. You just have to take your time, look in between the lines, and you will see what the reality is. The social revolution did not come to serve women and to empower women. It came to serve men and to empower men and to give more freedom to men, to give them more options and more freedom to satisfy their desires. But the benefits go to the woman, so to speak. This is one. Two, who benefited from the social revolution, so to speak, and the fact that women joined the workforce? Now women were joining the workforce. They were becoming professionals. They joined the labor force and they were becoming laborers. They worked in large companies. Who benefited? Women that were being paid minimum wage, that were forced to work for at least 10 hours, if not 12 hours a day. This came to their benefit, or was men that were benefiting? First, it was only one breadwinner in the family. Now there's two breadwinners. First, if it was only the men that were bringing the salary to the house, now it's split between the man and the woman. Who was benefiting? It came to whose advantage? Men. And men alone. Yet they call it the social revolution. They call it a revolution that came to empower women. It's funny how things work. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. What do the world religions say about birth control? We come to one of the world's oldest religions. Not the oldest, but one of the world's oldest religions, Judaism. In Judaism, you have three schools of thought. Three main sects. The Orthodox, the Conservative, and the Reform Jews. As for the Orthodox Jews, who are quite conservative, you could call them the Wahhabis of Jews. These Orthodox, they're very strict, they're very conservative, and are not very fond of birth control. They allow it only in very certain cases, and the couples that wish to use contraceptives or birth control, they need to ask a rabbi. They need to check with a rabbi, and that rabbi will assess if this couple is in need of birth control or not. As for conservative Jews, they have more leeway, and they made more exceptions. As for Reform Jews, they're quite a bit more liberal, and they give their followers the freedom to use their own judgment. They have no restrictions. They tell their followers that you use your own judgment. If you feel that you need to use contraceptives, you need to use birth control, then so be it. This is for Judaism. As for Christianity, you have the Protestants and the Catholics. The Protestant Anglican Church allowed birth control. It didn't have an issue with birth control. And in 1930, as we read, it publicly allowed and endorsed birth control. As for the Roman Catholic Church, it banned birth control. Till today, as we speak, the Catholic Church has banned birth control. The only form that is allowed is abstinence. That is it. As for using contraceptives, in Catholicism, according to Catholics, it is not allowed. Even though the vast majority of Catholics do not pay attention to their church and they go ahead and use contraceptives. Just like divorce. When it comes to divorce, you rarely see a Catholic family that wants to divorce and doesn't divorce because the Pope doesn't allow it, or the church doesn't allow it. They go ahead and divorce. The same way that they divorce and disobey their church, at the same time they use contraceptives and disobey their church. As I searched regarding Hinduism and Buddhism, I didn't find any sort of ban in these religions regarding birth control. Now we come to the religion of Islam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we come to Islam, in all of its schools of thought, whether it's the Hanafi or Hanbali or Shafi'i or Maliki or Ja'fari, the 5 main fiqh schools of thought in Islam, we see that there is no ban on birth control. No scholar said that it is haram. We don't have a verse or a narration that says explicitly that birth control and the use of contraceptives is haram. Thus, most scholars that are asked in the school of thought of Islam, in the religion of Islam, whether in the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt or the Sunni school of thought, there is no ban on birth control. A man can use contraceptives, and so can a woman. She could use contraceptives, she can use the pill. In fact, some scholars even stated that a husband cannot stop his wife from taking the pill. If she chooses to take the pill, the husband cannot stop her. He cannot refrain her and say that I have the authority to stop you. No, he does not have that sort of authority. Thus, in Islam, there is no ban on birth control. Yes, there are some details regarding some certain types of contraceptives. Not the pill, but other kinds of contraceptives that include seeing a physician, and the physician has to look at certain places. Yes, there's a ban from that position. From that side, but not the side of the contraceptive itself, it's fine. But as for the physician having to look at some parts of the body, if it's not an emergency, yes, some scholars have said that this is not allowed because it's not an emergency. Having said this, that there's no ban in Islam on contraceptives and birth control, this doesn't mean that Islam encourages birth control. This doesn't mean that Islam encourages contraceptives, the use of contraceptives. In fact, Islam encourages procreation. Islam encourages us to have children. In the verse that I began with in the beginning of the lecture, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. Do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. We will sustain you and we will sustain them. Of course, some might say that what relevance does this verse have to birth control? The verse says, and do not kill your children. Contraceptives are not a use, it's not a force, it's not it's not a form of murder or killing. However, metaphorically, it could be, do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. It could mean, do not kill your children, the same way that during the days of Jahiliyyah, they would kill some of their children, especially whom? The female children. They would kill them. Why? Because female children would not produce, they would not go to work, they would only take in, they would not give out, they would not produce, so some would kill them. The Quran says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. It could also pertain to abortion. Abortion is a form of killing. Abortion is a form of murder. And it could also pertain to birth control. When you stop a birth from taking place, when you stop an inception from taking place, this could also be seen as a metaphoric kind of murder. Of course, it's not a crime. It's not a sin, but it could be related to this verse. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. And another verse, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Al-Maw'uda is a female infant that is murdered at the time of birth. Narrations say that during the days of Jahiliyyah, when a man knew that his wife was about to go into labor, he would take her outside in the desert. Imagine how cold their hearts were. Their hearts were made out of stone. He would take his wife out in the desert and he would dig a small grave. If that child being born was a male, that child was saved. If that child was born was a female, he would immediately take the child and bury that child alive. The Quran says, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. And on the day of judgment, the child will be asked, for what reason was it killed? For what reason was it killed? Some scholars say that this also includes birth control. Again, it is not considered murder, it is not considered a sin, but it's a metaphoric way. And in a hadith, that birth control or contraception, using contraceptives, is a al-wa'd al-khafi, al-azl huwa al-wa'd al-khafi. It's a minor form of wad, infanticide. We shall explain this in further detail, inshallah. We also see that ahadith encourage procreation, that encourage Muslims to have children, to increase their numbers. In a hadith, تَنَاكَحُوا تَنَاسَلُوا فَإِنِّي أُبَاهِي بِكُمُ الْأُمَمَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلَوْ بِالصِّدْقِ. Rasulullah states that marry and reproduce, for I shall be proud of you on the day of judgment, even with a miscarriage. I'll be proud even of the miscarriages. Reproduce. And another hadith regarding women, خَيْرُ نِسَاء أُمَّتِي الْوَلُودِ الْوَدُودِ. The best women of my nation are those that reproduce. And another hadith, لِكَيْ تُثْقِلُ الْأَرْضَ مِنْ قَوْلِ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Reproduce so that you may increase the word, the statement of La ilaha illallah on earth. Of course, some of you might be thinking that, does this mean I should have a child every year? This means that I have to have 15 children or 16 children. Is this what Islam encourages? Of course not. I mean, if you want to have 16 children, by all means, knock yourself out. Have 16 children. But Islam, when it encourages quantity, at the same time it encourages quality. Islam says have plenty of children, but Islam also says have plenty of good children, proper children, Islamic children, followers of Ahlul Bayt. Yes, a lot of times, especially in the Middle East, we see a lot of couples that have a manufacturing company of children at home. They produce 10 or 12 or 14, to the point that sometimes the father mixes up his children. He doesn't know their names. And as for their upbringing, that's forgotten. Do they pray? The father doesn't know. What do they do outside of the house? The father and mother don't even know. Do they have good friends? Did they listen to music? What kind of food did they eat? Where did they go at night? Parents are clueless. Islam says have children. Have quantity, but at the same time, have quality. Have quality. Care about your children. Raise them. Some parents are extremely irresponsible and extremely lazy. Not just in the Middle East, even here. Even in the West. Even in the West. I see some families, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them children, beautiful children, 1 or 2 or 3, however they are. Both parents work. The husband goes to work from 8 to 5, which is fine. And the wife also works from 8 to 5 and to 6. Where's the child? Who takes care of the child? The child ends up at a daycare center. At a daycare center. Okay, the daycare center is a good place. They feed the child. They give him proper nourishment. They make him go to sleep. But do they give the child love and affection that he deserves or she deserves? Child wants love. The child doesn't want a babysitter. The child wants his own mother and own father. I'm shocked when I hear that some parents, they take their child to a foster care center or a daycare center from 8 in the morning all the way till 6 in the evening. And when the child comes back at home at 6 in the evening, you would think that the family spends time with this child. The mother spends time with her child. They play with the child. No, at 7 p.m. or at 8 p.m. he goes to sleep. And he doesn't see the parents up till 6 in the morning again. What sort of life is this? What sort of upbringing is this? I tell you honestly, if this is how you want to raise children, don't have children at all. If you want to give your children to a daycare center all day, and you want others to raise your children for you, please don't have children. What sort of children will they be? Islam encourages quantity, and at the same time Islam encourages quality. Islam says have children, but have children that you can raise. Don't let them be raised in the streets. Don't let them be raised at other places. You raise your own children. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Now, when we look at the two camps of those who encourage birth control and those who support birth control, we see that there's two camps. Those who are in support and those who condemn and are against birth control. And they both mention the pros and the cons of birth control. As for the pros, they say that it has a social effect. Birth control has an effect on society. This means less traffic. This means birth control means more jobs. Birth control means better schools. Why? Because lesser students, lesser classmates. You'll have more attention from your teacher. So better schools, better education, better grades, more jobs, more lands, more homes, and so on and so forth. As you can see, this pro, it all looks at the material aspect, the social aspect. It's a good aspect, but you can't deny that it has a material aspect to birth control. Another pro that they mention for birth control is the financial aspect, the economic aspect. A family with less children means less expenses. It means smaller bills. It means when you go to the supermarket, you'll have less to buy, less to spend. It means you don't have to worry so much about your expenses and the bills that you pay and the salary that you make. Why? Because the people that you take care of are less. Thus, this aspect is purely materialistic. Purely materialistic. Number 3, the parenting aspect, the parenting effect. Some parents say that it's better for me to raise 2 children in a better way, in a good way, better than to raise 5 children or 6 children, but I can't have control over them. To raise 2 in a proper way is better than to raise 5, but in a way that I can't have control over them. Especially with today's challenges, especially with today's dangers. I say this all the time, that those who do not live in the Middle East, yes, they're safe. They're safe from ISIS. They're safe from Al-Qaeda. They're safe from terrorists. But this doesn't mean that they're completely safe. They might be physically safe. Yes, living in the West, living in the UK or in the United States, you're physically safe. There's no terrorism. But don't think that you're completely safe. There's a spiritual danger. There's a spiritual danger. There's an emotional danger. There's a religious danger for all of us and our children. With all these dangers today, with the advent of the internet, social networking sites, with this phone, with the iPhone and the smartphones that everyone has, mashallah. Maybe some people have 2 of them. Even little children with 6 or 7 or 8 years old, they have iPhones and smartphones. And when they have a phone, it's a small device, but it opens them to the entire world, to every single site that you haven't even pictured or imagined. Now these young children, they have access to. Some parents say that let me have 2 children and work on them and raise them in a good manner, better than having 5 children or 6 children, and I don't know at the end of the day where my children are going to go. Who's going to trick them? Who's going to deceive them? This is also an opinion, and it's a legitimate opinion. These are the pros. As for the cons, those who are not in favor of birth control, they mention the cons and the disadvantages of birth control and the use of contraceptives. One of them is the political factor. The political factor. You see, birth control, it changes the demographics. It changes the demographics. With the use of birth control, one population increases, another population decreases. That country which I told you about in the beginning of the lecture, that approximately 30 years ago, they encouraged the use of birth control for legitimate reasons. Today, they changed their mind. Today, they are banning birth control. They are putting a limit on birth control. They are encouraging procreation. Why? Because that country was dominated by the followers of Ahlul Bayt. They were the majority. Today, others are they're almost becoming the majority. That small minority in small cities for the past 30 years, now they're becoming the majority. Yes, in this heavily dominated country by followers of Ahlul Bayt. Now the others are becoming a majority. Isn't this a danger on politics? Especially in the Middle East when we study the politics. And especially when you have countries like Saudi Arabia, that is a threat for the followers of Ahlul Bayt and is a threat on Islam itself. When you have a country like Saudi Arabia that promotes procreation for those small minorities, that tells them, if you marry more than one wife, we'll support you. We'll support you. If you marry another wife, we'll give you $10,000 for each wife. Now please don't get courage to go to that country. I see some of the brothers nodding their heads. That's why I'm not telling you which country it is. $10,000 to marry another wife. Why? For procreation. For each child, I don't know how much money. Why? To encourage procreation so that that certain school of thought dominates. This is politics. More numbers. This affects politics. This affects the entire region. It affects the demographics of that country and other countries. Now, if you can imagine certain countries that the numbers of the followers of Ahlul Bayt and others are not too big. The numbers are close. There's almost a balance. Countries like Iraq or Lebanon or Bahrain, even though followers of Ahlul Bayt are the majority in Iraq and in Bahrain and in Lebanon, yet the culture of birth control can be extremely dangerous politically. That is why in some countries they realize the danger. Now they're encouraging their followers to procreate, to increase your numbers. Because in democratic countries, the enemy can become the majority. If the enemy becomes the majority, they'll dominate the country. With alliances with other countries, this could be a disaster. I'm sure you can realize the damages and the catastrophes that can occur. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Among the disadvantages of birth control is that it reduces the numbers. My dear friends, sometimes having big numbers is important. Being a majority is important, especially in democratic countries, especially in the West, in America, in the UK, and in Europe. As our numbers increase, our power also increases democratically. By the power of voting, through the power of majority, our power also increases. In certain European countries, I read statistics that within 20 years, in certain European countries, Muslims can become the majority. They can become the majority if we do not allow birth control to have an effect. But the problem is not just with the majority. Inshallah, we do become a majority. But at the same time, there are other things. The power of voting, the power of being involved in politics, the power of being involved in civic engagement. This would require other lectures and other discussions. But the key is being a majority. This is important. Being a majority means being powerful. Among the disadvantages of birth control is that it has side effects. It has health issues, especially on women. It has health issues, especially the contraceptive pill. For example, I saw studies that show that in women, the pill can cause nausea, headaches, depression, mood changes. Now, mood changes affects the woman and affects the men as well in the family. When the mood changes of one of the spouses, it affects the whole family. I saw something on the internet which I found interesting. That the mother is the core of the house. She's the core of the house. The mood of the house depends on the mood of the mother. If the mother is happy, the entire house is happy. The father, the children, even the pets. If the mother is not happy, no one's happy in the house. Test it. Go to your homes and see. When the mother is happy, everyone else is happy. Why? Because the mother passes on emotions. The mother passes on emotions. She gives emotions to others. That's why keep your mothers happy. And keep your wives happy. If you want a happy house, if you want a happy environment at home, keep your wives and mothers happy, because it will take to you as well. It will come back to you. Some studies say that the contraceptive pill has the risk of serious health problems, such as strokes and heart attacks and even liver tumors. This could be caused by the pill. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, after all of this, our opinion is quite evident. Our opinion, my dear friends, regarding birth control is obviously that we encourage procreation. Whether you're in the East or you're in the West, we encourage procreation. We encourage families to have children. I know a scholar, of course it's humorous, it's a joke. He would ask newlyweds, young men that had just gotten married, he asked, how many children do you have? You say, for example, 3. He says, you have 9 more to go. If they say 4, he says you have 8 more to go. It's always 12. I don't know, because of the 12 imams, or I don't know what it is, it's 12. Now, my dear friends, I'm not telling you to have 12 children. But we do encourage procreation. There's a culture, especially in the West, that 1 child is enough. Or 2 children are enough. 2 children is it. That's it. We've reached our climax. To these parents, I tell them, have more children. They'll benefit you in the future. Don't be so lazy. Just because you can't get up in the middle of the night, or you have to work extra hours, or whatever, don't be lazy. Have children. Al-malu wal-banun. Complete the verse. Al-malu wal-banun zinatul hayatid dunya. That wealth and children are the ornaments of this life. When you grow old, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, when you reach my age, I'm just kidding, of course. You can tell from the beard. You want your children. You want your grandchildren. You want to see a house full of children, a house full of grandchildren. Now, of course, living in the West, it's expensive. I give you that. Making a living is not easy. Making your salary is not easy, but it's very much doable. It's very much possible. You live in a country that has a lot of jobs. Yes, compared to the Middle East, it has a lot of jobs. Maybe compared to the United States of America, not so much. But you still can get an education, you can make a job. Don't give me an excuse of, we have a lot of expenses. Where's your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Quran says, نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. We'll give you, we'll supply you. Don't have fear of poverty, of being poor. Allah will give. And I don't think that in the West we have a lot of poor or poverty. We do have poverty, but not so much, not compared to the Middle East. Thus, this should not be your excuse. In the West, we need bigger numbers. We need to be a majority. We need to be democratically more active in this country and in other countries. And the only way is by bigger numbers. Yes. And I come back and I emphasize again that quality is extremely important. Quality is important. Have children, but at the same time, raise good children, Islamic children. If you had the decision, you only had two options, quantity or quality, yes, I will tell you choose quality. By far. Choose quality. If that was your only option, the option is either quantity or quality, choose quality, of course. One good child, one good Muslim child is better than 5 non-religious children, of course. Work on the quality. Work on how you raise them. Pay attention to them. Put endless hours in how you raise your children, and their schooling, and their education, and their friends, and their social networking, and their accounts. Check on it. Supervise. Ask. Be involved. This is all very important. Jews, whether in the United States of America or in the United Kingdom, they're not the majority. Everyone knows this. They're the minority. Muslims are bigger numbers than Jews, wherever you go, yet they're more powerful. For them, it's not about quantity. For them, it's all about quality. For us Muslims, it should be quantity and quality. Let's increase our numbers, but in good qualities. Insha'Allah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins during these blessed nights of the month of Ramadan, to accept our deeds and our actions, our Quran recitation, our dua, and to help us continue our fasting till the end of the month of Ramadan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم، من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل، أن تكتبنا من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم، المشكور سعيهم، المغفور ذنوبهم، المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.